Hello. So today I will talk about the Empress. There she is here. She's card number 3 of the Major Arcana. And how I think about her is she is related to the Buddha family Ratna, which is represented by the color yellow or gold. Is related to abundance and fertility and generosity. The element is earth. The Empress, in her neurotic state, is related to greed, hoarding, withholding things, poverty. In her wisdom, she's often related to fruition and, as I say, equanimity, generosity, abundance, fertility. This card was one of 2 cards that maintained its integrity from the drawing that I had on paper to the actual card that's being printed. And that's significant because I had gone through the entire Major Arcana and, the Suit of Cups before I stopped putting them on paper and only put them on the iPad. And so out of all of those cards, only 2 really maintained the same image that you see today. It feels significant for this particular card because she felt like she showed up as she was. And the only thing on her that changed was I gave her color, and her crown changed a little bit. And that was a whole thing, trying to figure out what her crown should look like, especially once color was introduced in this kind of thing. But she didn't change. She had the same hair, the same body, the same outline as she did when she was first transformed onto the electronic form. Her environment changed slightly, like I had kind of like, just this quick kind of drawing of her environment. And so her environment, the water came more alive, and the grass and the flowers came more alive because the color was added. You may sometimes see this picture represented with a sun, because on the paper I had more space to make her environment, but the sun got cut out when I had to figure out what was most important to produce on the card, because the space became more limited. This card makes me think of a black woman, and that has not changed. Once she received her color stayed the same. Her environment, the colors in her environment stayed the same. She felt related to the black woman, black fertility. Not black fertility, fertility, fruition. This divine ability to open the portal to human life coming into this realm. Connected to the earth, she felt really connected to nature and the earth and natural cycles and the natural feminine form and the power of the natural woman. Her ability, the fertile natural woman. It felt related to black women, and at the time I didn't have all of this thought out. She just came forth as who she is. And later, as I thought about it, as I thought about creating this video and talking more in depth about her, what I understood was that she felt black because in my experience of the black culture, the black women of my generation and before, in the cultures that I was exposed to, that I grew up around, that I was exposed to, the black women were giving birth when they were fertile. It was not unheard of for women to have 5, 6, 7 children. I have 2 sisters with 5 children. My mother had 6 children. I have a sister with 8 children. And this wasn't so like frowned upon or discouraged or seen as this negative thing. As a woman, as a black woman, there was definitely this feeling of that this was bad coming from the outside. So when we would interact with healthcare professionals or people in positions of helping the community, there was always this feeling, at least for me, this feeling of this is bad, we need to stop this. How do we prevent the young women from having babies? How do we stop this process? But that feeling wasn't a feeling within the community itself. It was this feeling of the helpers, who were coming from outside of the community, coming into the community to help Planned Parenthood, WIC, doctors, people at the welfare office, like these external systems that are in place to help the community, always felt extremely judgmental and like this was a bad thing that was happening that needed to be stopped. However, the women who were giving birth and the women who were getting pregnant didn't feel, I never had that feeling like this is a bad thing from them and from the community. It felt like this is a natural thing, or this is, just a part of life, and this is just a part of being woman, being human. And so this card feels related to the women within the community, not the helpers outside of the community, but the women of the community who are giving birth when they're fertile and relating to it in this way that there is this abundance and we will survive, we will make it because there's so much all around us. The wealth within the community and the wealth of the black women that I was around was not this external financial wealth. It was this wealth of wisdom and knowledge and love. It was this wealth of, within the environment. It was just rich with possibilities. Different people that you would interact with, different personalities, but it was like rich with this kind of like fertile ground in which these children were coming into. When I think about the difference between the black women of my generation and before, and I keep reiterating that because I think that the younger generations are relating more to white culture and the feminist movement, which I will speak a little bit about in a minute. The women of my generation and before were relating to birth and life in this way that we make things better through the next generation. We make things better together with the next generation. That in order to survive, we must continue to, live, and give birth and celebrate life and celebrate this ability that we have to give birth and to care for and nurture the children and the people. It was the only way that the people were going to survive coming out of bondage, coming out of poverty. It's the only way for the people to continue living and, breathing and eventually thriving. That feels very connected to maybe the ancient wisdom of womanhood, and maybe a part of it is related to slavery. I'm not sure. I know that it has this feeling of this is the way to survive. At least for me, in me, it feels like the wisdom of coming out of, rough situations. How do you do it? You continue to breathe life into the world. You continue to give life. You continue to participate in that process. Whereas it feels different in the white community, especially the affluent white community of this culture, where the feminine isn't about being, and which I feel is like a thread throughout the Black community, where it's just I just am, and I just give birth, and I just am a woman, and I just have fertility. Like, it's not this possession, it's more being. Within the white community, and especially when I think about the feminist movement and how it has impacted women in birth and the direction we are going today, it feels more like this possession of. It is my body, this ownership of, like, I own fertility, or I possess fertility, or I can manipulate it so that I'm going to set things up so that when I bring the child into this environment, things are set up already for them. It feels a lot more calculated than within the Black community, where it is just a part of life. In the white community, it feels like it's another step in constructing this life that you see, that you want. And so it feels like, well, if I don't have those things together, I'm not going to have children. And it's become so extreme that we are waiting until the women are having geriatric pregnancies or no longer fertile to give birth. And so we're manipulating fertility in order to be able to give birth, because we've waited so long that it's no longer a natural process. It's no longer just, this ability that we have. We're like manipulating it and creating the perfect circumstance to bring forth life. And it has become such a thing of possession that we are, as a culture, trying to now pass that on to men. Like, men can now possess this thing because it's something to possess rather than a part of natural being. And the Empress feels far more related to this natural being than she does the manipulation of femininity or fertility or the ability to birth new life into this realm. I sometimes think about the white culture and their relationship to it as like the neurotic quality of this energy, where there is this fear of starvation or this fear of, not surviving. And so we wait until we have collected so many resources, so many material resources, before we feel like we are ready to give birth. And it feels like it's related to this fear of this lack, or this need to have control over so much of the environment before it feels safe, or before we can recognize the abundance around. So yeah, those are kind of the differences that I see between these women and how they manifest. And it feels like we are moving kind of nationally more toward this feminist way of approaching things, the control of birth control, abortion, this right that they have to control the woman's body or to own the woman's body versus just being and relating to it from this place of being rather than this place of possession. So I think that's all I want to say about her right now. I look forward to hearing, to seeing comments or to further developing my thoughts around this, as well as, within the community of those who engage with these videos or these cards. I look forward to hearing your thoughts. Thank you for joining me, and I look forward to talking to you next time about the Emperor.